What is up? I am Erin and this is Erin Go Read. Welcome to my guest room / my office. I am currently sitting, I'm icing my butt basically. I broke my butt. I pulled my glute max at the gym today, and sitting with my legs like extended feels much better than having my legs bent in any sort of way. So here's where I am, and I'm thinking about, so it's Friday at 5:48. Oh, let it not be Sunday. It's Friday at 5:49 now, and I just finished with work for the week, and I'm thinking about doing a 24 hours of reading over the weekend. So from, now-ish, let's call it 6 o'clock to Sunday night, basically, not necessarily at 5:49 Sunday night, but before I go to bed on Sunday, see if I can get 24 hours of reading and writing combined, because I am getting really close to finishing the first draft of my memoir about my time with my late husband after his injury. And actually just yesterday, I crossed the 30,000 word kind of benchmark, which means that I have, in print form, that's about 100-page book. So that's really exciting. There's still more to go. I anticipate it'll probably be 40,000-ish words, at least the first draft. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, I would really like to take some concentrated time over this weekend to read and to write. So what am I reading? In the middle of a few different books. So the audiobook I'll be listening to is The Prophets by Robert Jones Jr. This takes place in the South during slavery, and Isaiah and Samuel are our main characters. They're two enslaved people, and it's they are lovers, but the word homosexuality isn't a thing, and it's a hard book for me to talk about because it's very lyrical. Actually right here, with a lyricism reminiscent of Toni Morrison. Robert Jones Jr. fiercely summons the voices of slaver and enslaved alike. And I'm finding it hard to put into words this book because the language is so high that I feel like I'm not smart enough for it. You ever feel like that? So I'm just trying to enjoy the story and enjoy the lyricism of it. I do kind of feel like I would be getting more from it if I was reading the physical book rather than listening to the audiobook of it. I feel like it's one that if I read a second time around, I would get a lot more out of it. But with as many other things as I've been reading, this has been my audiobook selection. So maybe I will read some of this physically, and maybe that will help. I am enjoying it. It's just one of those where I feel it, honestly, it makes me feel kind of stupid. Like I have to go back and listen to things over again. The other thing I'm reading is The Relentless Moon by Mary Robinette Kowal. And this is the third book in the Lady Astronaut series. But I would say, I'm going to adjust this a little bit. There we go. I would say that you could read this one, the third book. You could start here because we have a new main character. So Dr. Elma York is the lady astronaut. She is in the first one, which is The Calculating Stars, and then the second one, which is The Fated Sky. It's following her story. And the beginning of what happens in this series is that it's the late 50s, and there's a meteorite hits off the shore of the United States East Coast, and it basically accelerates climate change. And it's projected that within 25 years or so, it's going to be so hot on Earth that the ocean will be boiling. And so it has really accelerated the need to explore space. And the whole space race, rather than the space race becoming a competition, which country is going to land on the moon first, it becomes the space race to how quickly can we get off of this dying planet Earth and to get humans safely to the moon. And so in this third book now, Dr. York, the lady astronaut from the first 2 books, is on a mission to Mars. And now our new main character, Nicole Worgan, who was a former WASP pilot, she was one of the initial 6 lady astronauts. We're following her story. And her husband is the governor of Kansas. Kansas City is the new capital of the United States. As there was so much disaster and decimation that happened to the East Coast, Washington, D.C. is no longer habitable. And so we're following her. And so there are references to the lady astronaut, Dr. Elma York. But I really think you could start here. I just love this so much. It's sci-fi. It takes place on the moon and they're astronauts and all that. But it really more reads like historical fiction, I think. So I think if you're someone who wants to get into sci-fi, but you're maybe a little bit intimidated by like the scienciness of it, the spaciness of it or something, I think this would be a good way to enter it. And it has a really neat elements of this like Elseworlds thing. Like, what if we took 1960s Americans and put them in this scientifically advanced situation, but there's still the racism and the sexism, all of the isms that existed in the 60s, but now they're in a different circumstance. So it's really, really good. It's one of those books that I just want to be reading it. I like resent having to do other things besides read this book. So that is that. And then I really want to finish On Writing by Stephen King. I'd been reading this really well, and then I just kind of put it down. Honestly, I think The Relentless Moon kind of sidetracked me from reading On Writing. But let's see, 161 of about 2. So I have about 120 pages or so left to read of On Writing. And so this is Stephen King's memoir on the craft of writing. So the beginning half or so of it is really kind of his early experiences with writing. And then the second half gets more into a little bit more technical, where he's kind of a little bit more instructing on the craft of writing. And as I mentioned, I am writing my own memoir. And so that was why I ended up picking this up to begin with. So I think I'm going to write for, let's see, it's going on, it's 5:55. So if I read from 6 to 7, maybe I'll write from 7 to 8. And see how many hours I can get kind of logged to begin with. And I should probably get my journal and like actually track this by the half hour or so to see if I can rack up 24 hours of reading and writing over the weekend. Good morning. So it is just after 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, and I have just, I just watched new Ariel Bissett video. Oh, excuse me, sir. There we go. And I listened to an hour of The Prophets. The first half hour, I was just lying in bed. I just didn't want to get up listening. And then the second half hour, I got up. So nice thing about living with my parents, or my parents living with me, is that every now and then, I'm usually the coffee maker. I normally actually set it up the night before, and so I wake up and the coffee is freshly brewed. But a lot of times on like a Saturday morning, that won't happen. And so as I came out to the living room, my dad was in there making coffee. So that was nice. But anyway, then I sat with the book and read along as I listened to the audiobook. So I got an hour of that, and I am exactly halfway through this. I have to say that, first of all, listening to it and not driving really helped with my just like comprehension level and appreciation for the language. And then also reading along as I was reading it also really helped. There's a really interesting, like most of it happens on the plantation that they call empty. But every now and then we go back to Africa, to when the white people first came, and they were Portuguese in this case. And so we just had a chapter that took place there. So that was really interesting. And also there was so like Samuel and Isaiah, blanking on his name, like they are together, there was there were two men who were united like in an actual ceremony in front of everybody, where it wasn't secretive and it was just like a thing. It was just like, these are just two people who have been courting each other. And then we had the white perspective of the Portuguese that was there, that saw it as an abomination. So yeah, and that was interesting. But anyway, for right now, I think I'm going to do at least another chapter on Stephen King, and then get back to the Relentless Moon. So, not feeling writing yet. I feel like I just want to read right now, but just keeping track my notebook. So I got 4 hours done so far. 3 of that was yesterday, 2 hours reading, 1 hour writing, and then an hour so far of reading today. So long way to go, but the day is young. So I'm going to start with Stephen King. And you know, one thing actually that I noticed is that when I can't look at the thing and wear my glasses at the same time. Progressives. One thing I noticed, that because I've been reading his take on writing and talking about like what's good writing and what's not writing, and the overuse of adverbs, or actually he doesn't like adverbs at all. He's where I am right now, he's been describing the 3 main elements of writing: narration, description, and dialogue. And the idea of not relying on plot to tell your story, that you're like uncovering the plot gets uncovered, the story exists, you're telling the story, and to rely on plot is a mistake, and it's a sign of bad writing. Not that a book can't be plot heavy, but anyway, so as I'm writing this, I now, as I was reading, like I read this for a half hour or something last night, and then I went on to the Relentless Moon, and so I was just noticing the narration, the dialogue, the description in particular, so much more than I normally do. So I thought that was really interesting, and there was lots of things that I like underlined as I'm thinking about my own writing, especially as I'll get into like the rewrite editing process of jazzing things up. Because I was talking to my book coach yesterday, there are parts when I'm writing that there are parts of it that just need to be a little bit more info dumpy, just because I'm just relaying the information of something that happened, and it might not necessarily be a very emotional thing. So if I'm writing about something emotional, obviously it's much easier to use more impactful language because I'm feeling it so much more deeply as I'm writing it. And then there are times where I'm literally can hardly see the screen because of the tears. There are other times when I'm just recounting events that aren't necessarily emotional, but you need to know for the context of what we're talking about. And so I'm finding those are the points where the language needs more help, because it's just not naturally coming out as emotive as the more emotional stuff does. So anyhow, I'm gonna stop talking. 12 after. I'll probably wait till 15 after just to make it an easy for my brain to count, and read some more Stephen King. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Momentary pause to acknowledge all the March readathons. So first of all, it just happens to be, and I was reminded last night when I watched Doris's video, that it is mid-month book bash. So it just happens to be that I decided to do this during the mid-month book bash, which kind of gives me a little bit of a buffer. If I don't hit the 24 hours by when I go to bed on Sunday, I still do have Monday. So there's that. So mid-month book bash. But then there's also the dog's laying on books. He's fine. Middle grade March, which I do have a middle grade book that I would like to start reading this afternoon, at some point today. But also March of the Mammoths, I'm not really tackling that right now. I am reading the Brothers Karamazov, but like not really. I'll need to get to that at some point. because it's a book club book. But anyway, March Mystery Madness, that's the one I couldn't think of. Hang on while I die. Okay, I think I'm okay. While this is not technically a mystery, there is a significant mystery in this. We have some like double agent, like spy kind of stuff happening. There's someone who is sabotaging this mission that they're on, and even possibly the mission to the Mars mission as well. So there is a mystery that is very much at the forefront of the plot of this book. So I feel like I'm a little bit, at least, touching on the mystery aspect. The March Mystery Madness readathon. I don't know. I did pull some books. I would love to read an Agatha Christie this month. I don't know if I'll get actually to it, but for right now, this is kind of tickling that mystery itch. It is a beautiful day, so I have just come outside to sit outside. It's 11:15. I just did about an hour of writing. Well, yeah, an hour of writing, and then I just got changed and did some other stuff. But anyway, I'm gonna sit out here with Relentless Moon and just enjoy, soak in the sun, take in the non-windy weather, because we've had some cold, windy weather recently. I mean, I say cold like by California standards. But it's supposed to be 68 today, or 71 today. It's 68 right now, and it feels amazing. So I'm all freshly like shiny and sunblocked right now. But yeah, I'm gonna read this guy. So actually, I ended up, as I was reading this, I don't want to. So there was a portion that I read in this that I very much identified with, and it made me realize that, so I ended up writing about this. It made me realize that my worldview now is that of a widow. So my perspective will always be through the eyes of a widow. So when I'm reading something in a book, when I'm experiencing something in life, my perspective will never be the same as when I wasn't a widow to now. So, because I was thinking, I'm reading this thing and I'm thinking, would I be reacting differently if I was not a widow but I won't know that, because that's who I am now, and that's how I will always see things. Now I will obviously get further and further from my acute period of grief into my widowhood, becoming a widow, but I will never not be a widow at this point. And so anything that I ever encounter will always be through that lens. So that just kind of inspired something that I ended up writing about. So that's why I put that down and started writing for about an hour. So anyway, that's where we are right now. My dog is outside eating grass that I'm sure he will throw up here within the next few minutes. So cool. Well, true to form, I can't just lie around and do nothing. So I have been quite productive over the last several hours, like 4 hours. I've been listening to The Prophets, and I'm into it now. I think the key was I needed to be doing something, I don't know, for whatever reason, certain books when I'm driving just don't work. But I did some yard work, I cleaned my car, took a shower, just did a bunch of stuff, and I'm really into it. So the beautiful lyrical writing is now working for me in a way. I think I was just too distracted before, and almost getting just lulled to not paying attention when I was listening to it before. So I think I'm 3/4 or so of the way through it. I think there's like 3 or 4 hours of it left. So I'll have to redo my math here in a little while, but I've been listening for like 4 hours straight. So I think that puts me at a good like 10 hours or so. So I have a couple of errands to run. I got to pick up prescriptions at the pharmacy, and then I need to pick up some groceries. And so I'll just be listening. I I don't think I'll listen while I'm in the store. I think I won't be able to pay attention. So just while I'm in the car driving, and then when I get home, yeah, I'll probably actually sit back down and read again. I'm pretty sure I haven't had my car washed since before COVID, just the rain. And I live in California, so yeah, car's filthy. So I had a complimentary car wash actually, so do that. I detailed it pretty well actually myself, minus the vacuum. It's kind of funny. Well, that's loud. So this is one of those where there'll be I'll be able to vacuum it after the wash is done. Listening to Profits. I'm back home and I just hit 12 hours total. So I've done 9 hours today. 6 hours of that has been audiobook. So I only have a little over 2 hours left in the Profits. So yeah, I've been really enjoying that now. And I think because I finally kind of got into it, I was having no problem when I was driving around staying connected to it. So I'm gonna switch it up. My head hurts, like I have like allergy sinus stuff going on from the yard work that I did, but hey, it looks pretty nice back there if you don't look too closely. But yeah, I think I'm just gonna lay down and get back to Relentless Moon. It's really easy to just jump into that world and keep going, and so I'm gonna see if I can get a good solid hour of that, and maybe I'll be hungry for dinner after about an hour or so.
Good morning. I am 14 and a half hours into the 24-hour reading challenge now. I got a half an hour of reading done from about 6:30 to 7 this morning, and I am now on a Zoom call actually, but this is what we call a GSD session, a get stuff done session, and so I'm about to start writing. So I've reset my time. I have set my timer to count my writing time. We write for a while, and then we come back and talk for a while, and we write for a while. So I'll be utilizing that. And then what I'm doing right now is I'm not writing the memoir. I'm writing my content for the week, but I'm still going to count it as my writing time because it's very much the same, productive writing time that helps get me into the flow too for writing the memoir. So yeah, basically that's what I do. On Sundays, I usually get at least Monday through Wednesday, typically written for my content, for my nutrition and fitness coaching. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm almost done with The Relentless Moon, and I'm so invested in the story. Something positive just happened. Something positive has needed to happen, and I just got that stinging tear in my eye kind of feeling. So I have 20 pages or so, 25 pages left in this. One thing that I haven't brought up that is important to note is that there is eating disorder rep in this story. So Nicole Wergen, our main character, has anorexia, and especially as very stressful times come up, she had basically been dealing with it. It had not been a problem for 10, 12 years, but with the stress of everything that's happening in the story, it is very much at the forefront, and it comes up on the regular. So if that is a sensitive area, I just want to warn that is an issue. Only in The Relentless Moon that is not Nicole Wergen isn't a character in, or if she is, she's a really side character that I don't remember from the first 2 books. But yeah, it's so good. So I'm gonna power through and finish the rest of this book. I finished it. It's so good. It's 5 stars, just like the first 2. One thing I think that's really cool about it is because the meteorite that hits Earth that speeds up the space race and the collaborative effort to colonize the moon, to save people from the dying Earth, is that civil rights and women's rights and the rights of all people of color is accelerated as well. So the sexism, all the isms still exist, but the need for collaboration, I think, helps to expedite the process. So yeah, that's a really cool aspect of it. Like that's the 50s and 60s are still alive, but yeah, it's kind of it's kind of cool to see the way that it's handled, the way that she handles the presence of these things is still very, very much being there, because especially you have people who have existed in this, you know, the world of the 50s and 60s that was still very segregated. There's there's a very small bit, but like there's a South African character who is what they call a white South African who is indoctrinated, and so it's definitely brought up. But you also have people of color and women in really high up positions because of the necessity of their skills, and so they're able to advance based on their merit and the necessity of having someone having an individual, not just a white man, in charge in that position of great, that will have great impact on the lives of many. So really, really cool. So I'm going to take a little bit of a break. I should probably eat something. And then I think I might actually start one of my middle grade March books. All right, so weird angle. I can't just do nothing. I'm enjoying the yard work I did yesterday and sitting outside listening to and also reading the physical book of the Prophets on audiobook. I probably did like the last 30 pages or so like that, and I did it for a couple other spots, hit and miss, throughout the book. So it's one of those, so I don't know if I've been able to articulate very well so far my thoughts on the Prophets. It started off just really hard for me to follow. By the way, I'm attacking this really overgrown rose bush. It butts up to my bedroom window, and when it's windy, it like whacks against the window. So yeah, I really don't know what I'm doing as far as pruning a rose bush. I just need it to not be so overgrown and stop hitting my window and drive me crazy. So anyway, the Prophets reminds me very much of anything by Toni Morrison, where I recognize the beauty in it, the absolute linguistic mastery of it, but have a hard time following it, and just following the layers. Like it's one of those where I love it, but I wish I was being taught from it. Like, can somebody who's far more intelligent than me teach me through this book? And I think I would enjoy it so much more. Like, I don't want to have to write essays about it. I just want to like sit and enjoy a lecture where someone is talking to me about all the things that I am missing, because I know I missed a lot. I felt the same way. I can't think of the name of the book. There's the book called The Conjure Women. Adecora, I believe, is the last name. I felt the same way about. I absolutely loved it, but there were so many layers. It's so deep, and so much symbolism, but also like, whoa, this is like tangled. But also what's that word? I can't think of the word, but basically like interconnectedness with other literary works. And this, in the Prophets, that interconnectedness definitely is. Well, you can see the influence of Toni Morrison and of James Baldwin, which Robert Jones Jr. very much attributes his style to, and has huge influences of him. But in the like kind of magical realism elements, the spiritual elements, but that interconnectedness is very much there with, okay, try not to stab myself while I do this. Not exactly wearing the best outfit for this, right? But with the Bible, and then we name the Prophets, each of the chapters of the book are told, or are called by a different book of the Bible. All of the characters
including our main characters, Isaiah and Samuel have biblical names. And this is one thing that I would love, like if I was going to study this more, I would study more into the naming of these characters. Who is named what and why. There is a child, Solomon. Okay, that's better. There's a child, Solomon, who's named aptly. And then the naming of him is discussed. There we go. The naming of him is discussed because it is unknown whether or not his dad is her husband, her black husband, or if it is the slave master. And so Solomon, is named. Anyway, I know that if I read this again, I would get much more out of it. I think it would be a really great to group read, especially with other people who know more than me, I guess. So yeah, I'm gonna stop like embarrassing myself and fumbling over reading this, and I'm gonna get to something a little bit more in my speed, and that is a middle grade book. This is The Ogress and the Orphans. One of the middle grade March prompts was to read a book featuring orphans, and this is by Kelly Barnhill, who is the author of The Girl Who Drank the Moon, which is excellent. There was some tag several years ago that there was a question, and I never did the tag, I just watched people do it. The question was, like, what's a book that you've read recently, like a contemporary book that you think will one day be a classic? And I absolutely think The Girl Who Drank the Moon is my answer for that. And so I was really excited. I just happened to walk into Ruby's bookstore the other day. I was early meeting somebody at a coffee shop across the street, so of course I had to wander into the bookstore, and I saw Kelly Barnhill's name, I saw Orphans, and I couldn't stop myself. So I have no idea what it's about, but I'm going to now just enjoy the yard work that I did yesterday and read this. So I believe I have about 4 hours left until I have completed my 24. I might even be able to hit 24 in 48, because I think I started at like around 6 o'clock or so on Friday night. So I think I could actually do 24 and 48. Cool. I am at 21 hours. I just finished another hour listening to Speaking from Among the Bones, the audiobook, the Flavia Luce audiobook. Did some laundry, got that actually put away. There's nothing like laying on the couch. My dog and I are. Say hi, Stevie. Say hi. Say hi. There he is. Anyway. So I have 3 hours left to get to 24 hours. I'm going to be reading The Ogress and the Orphans. And where am I? I'm on page 23. And that, so plenty to go there. I'm concerned, so 3 hours from now, so it would be 9:15. I'm often like in bed at like 8:30. I may need to switch to writing at some point in order to just kind of keep myself up a little bit. But I think this is totally doable. So I'm gonna get to it, because I would love to be finished at 9:15, and so I can go to sleep. 45 minutes left. I am struggling. I just had a full-on nod off just happen. I don't want to get up and go get my computer. I'm going to try to power through and finish with reading. I did it. Barely. Going to sleep.